But the following year, after she had passed away, I had sunflowers everywhere. Like, one thing about sunflowers is that they will always turn to face the sun.
Sure.
It was like just staying in the light, not going into darkness.
Yeah.
When you're in this creative zone, it's spiritual in a way. Like, there are so many people that are hurting. And if you're feeling really like just unsure about things, and buy flowers. It'll change the vibe.
Welcome to the Ill Noise Business Playbook. We sit down with people building real impact in their communities and unpack the vision behind their work. If you care about real stories and real connection, you're in the right place. Let's make some noise.
All right. We're here with the Ill Noise Business Playbook. I have Mary from Botanic Flora Apothecary. Boy, oh boy, did I try that and enough to make sure I said it right. How you doing, Mary?
You did it.
I did.
Yeah.
I hope you're having a good day so far. Let's have a cool conversation here.
Absolutely.
Want to get to know everything you're doing with your company and stuff, but always like to kind of get to know some of the whys behind why people are doing things, and more importantly, the who's behind who the heck are these people that I'm interviewing. So I'll let you know real quick. I've got one sibling in this world, and my brother, Jeff, an educator and author, he was born colorblind. So that's why I'm kind of leading this here right now. So
interesting.
It is interesting because when I was speaking to you before, you were telling me that, boy, that'd be really challenging for you if you're the same way, because color has such a strong meaning to you. Can you kind of tell the audience why that is?
Yeah, I think it's more so as a child. It was just something that I was always drawn to, color. And then when I was in high school and I was graduating, my goal was to travel. Like, I just wanted to travel.
Nice.
But then, I don't know, things happen in life and it doesn't always work out. So I did go to Florida and I did it was called SC, and it was like Southeastern Academy. It doesn't exist anymore, but they taught you, 7 different types of travel destinations you could do. And I did it. And then through that process, as I was working after high school, I met a gentleman from Sherwin-Williams.
Okay.
And Sherwin-Williams was actually a very big part of my life. It opened my eyes up to color science, for sure. I started out as color matching for Volvo GM, and then it was transitioned into going into the color science lab because I had gotten pregnant and I couldn't work in the labs anymore because you're around, chemicals and things like that.
Sure.
And from there, that's where the whole color science became even more impactful for me. From that, I met a lot of people in the industry and was able to kind of use my knowledge and, what I did with color and different aspects of color. From there, that was automotive. Then I went into paint coatings and wood coatings. I learned a lot about wood during that time, which was really cool because there's certain grains and hardness of woods. It was fascinating to me, at least, but
sure.
I don't know. And then from there, it was back to automotive. And then from there, I bounced back again to a company called Accurate Dispersions at the time. And there I did architectural color. So it's like the stuff that goes on your walls.
Okay.
So we were creating databases for other customers at the time, which ironically was PPG, who I work for now.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's a small circle.
Yes. Well, you painted a great picture of that, by the way. You did a great job with that. I know you talked to my wife and stuff like that. I myself have dealt with a lot of challenges along the way, I think. I think it would be very safe to say, right before I started college, I had my right hip replaced. Right after that, family members just started kind of leaving me during my entire time in college. And it was very challenging, and it's something that I've always sort of looked at as a lot of these tragedies that have occurred, that there's a lot of strength in kind of looking back and seeing how you've been able to kind of navigate through it and what you've learned from it. And you're really kind of understanding that some folks that aren't around anymore wouldn't want you to, spend all your time dwelling on the sadness, and instead would want you to smile and want to think about them and share these stories. And it's really powerful when I get to be around family members and we get to kind of bring up some of those folks that are no longer with us and still kind of keep them so strong within us.
Yeah.
And I know that you and I kind of share some of those similar things. You also have suffered some pretty big things here. Could you kind of share some of those things that you've had to kind of navigate through there, Mary, if you could?
The most, I think, interesting thing is I can talk about it now, whereas
Yep.
before
No way.
I couldn't get past 2 sentences, you know?
I can
I do
understand.
tear up every now and then, but it's not, how do I say, like, it's not because I'm still sad, but I feel like, you just miss them.
Yep.
And you know how grief works. It's like I can be driving or I can be making something at home, and all of a sudden, boom, a memory hits. And it's like, whoa, like, where did that come from? Kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yes.
And for me, yes, personally, my dad in 2017 went in for a routine procedure. Now, he was there for about a week for something else that was going on with his health. He wasn't, I should say, like in the best of, I guess, health, but at
Okay.
the same time, he wasn't at the point where like he was so frail that he was going to go, like we just kind of knew like he was going to have some issues and, we just had to work on helping him out. And so my mom, had him in the hospital, and then another doctor came to see him, and he suggested doing angiogram.
Okay.
And that's when we found out like he had an artery that was clogged. So they were going to do a procedure and, unclog it basically. So during that procedure, he passed away.
Oh,
And that was devastating because it was like that was my first, I think, real like close internet. Like my family is very small. I have a mom, dad, and sister. I had another sister, but she passed away when she was young. And that was it. It was just kind of like it had a hard time like understanding like what happened. And I think what happened in the procedure was that he was nicked somewhere, and it caused, because they have to thin the blood when they do
okay.
this procedure.
Sure.
He bled out basically.
Okay.
And that in itself was really traumatic for my sister. My sister, I think, was impacted like more so the most because she had medical background. She did dialysis for people. So she kind of knew more so about the medical terms that were happening. But my mom didn't want to do the procedure, and she had like told my mom, no, we should just do it, get it out of the way now. And she felt guilty.
I bet.
So she had a hard time with that after he had passed away. And I don't think she ever fully recovered from that, to be honest. And then came the loss of my pets. I had a little Yorkie. His name was Noah.
Noah.
He was just mama's baby. He would just crawl up on my shoulder here and he'd sleep right here. And anytime he heard my husband coming in, he'd have this low growl like,
Right. You're taking away time. My dog does that to me all the
so
time.
they
I think,
go at it,
yes.
and he's like, you don't growl at me. And then the dog, rah, 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 just barking at him. And then he had a companion. Her name was Coco. And Coco, she had seizures. So she wasn't, I guess, in the best of health. So it was hard, just trying to balance them out. And then us moving from 2015, we moved to West Lafayette because I took a job there. And then we moved back to Illinois and I took a job, or I'm sorry, not Illinois. We actually moved back to Wisconsin. And that was a hard time. It was a whole transition. So I don't know if that actually didn't help the dogs because they couldn't get, I guess, fully comfortable in one spot. We were living from hotels to place. And, but finally, once we got settled here in Antioch, it was a little bit better, but then I noticed he started having other issues and I took him into the vet and the vet's like, he's really sick. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, what do you recommend? And she's like, no, you're not
Getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, he's got diabetes right now. He may be losing his eyesight, a bunch of other internal, issues that he was having. And I was devastated. I was cleaning out a closet or something. And my husband called me and I actually called my husband and I said, they're saying Noah, he's not doing well and that we should put him down. And I'm like, I'm not going to put him down. And then my husband was like, Mare, he's not going to live forever. And I'm like, no, and I hung up the phone on him.
Right.
I was so upset. I was like, how could you tell me that, And
yes.
then I just sat with it for a minute and I said, and then I started to think back, yeah, he's been having trouble eating. He's been having trouble drinking. Maybe he is really sick. So then I said, okay, fine. And it took me a minute and I said, okay, I'm going to go back there and I'm going to be brave. And, so I was lucky enough to hold him. Sorry.
No, I've put some dogs down and it's been as challenging as anything I've ever had to do. Don't ever
holding him like
don't ever apologize.
And I held him until I couldn't feel his heartbeat. And that for me was just so like sad. Like,
yeah.
So of course, you're thinking, okay, after this, I'm not going to get any more pets. I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, then his mate actually passed away like 4 months after that, which I thought was so like I was like, "Why is this happening?"
Right.
So she passes away and I'm like, "Okay, I'm done with pets. I'm not gonna get any more pets ever." Like, I was so done. And then my daughter, she calls me from Petco and she's like or not Petco, it was, Pet Supply Plus, how they do like the adoptions kinda
Yeah.
thing. And she's
Yep.
like and we were just there.
Okay.
And the funny thing is she had ended up showing up later. It was right around Christmas time, and she was gonna do photos with her pit. She had a pit bull. And, I was like, "Oh, that's so weird," because I was looking at all these little dogs, and there was this one little brown dog with golden eyes. He was just so, like and I was like, "No, absolutely not." I'm walking away, and this little guy is howling. He's standing on the crate, and he's like, like, just howling. I was like, "No, I'm
Yes.
out of here." And so I left, and then she calls me from the same place about an hour or 2 later, and she's like, "Mom," she goes, "there's this little dog." And I'm like, "Stop it." I was like, "Where are you?" And she's like, "We're at Pet Supplies Plus." And I was just like, "Stop, no." And she
Right.
goes, "Do you want a dog?" I was like, "No, I don't want a dog." But it was just one of those things that he just lit me up, and his name's Levi.
Nice.
And, there was just something about him that was so special, and of course, she ends up getting him for me, and we bring
Nice.
him home, and, he's just a little chaotic because 'cause I've never had a bigger dog, it was always, like, small dogs, and he's just so playful, so full of energy, but I'm telling you, I feel like that little dog he's not little, but he's just I sent pictures too, so you can see what I'm
Sure.
talking about. He is
Yeah.
just sweetest pup, and
Yes.
he is just so, like, in tune to what's going on around me. Like, he knows, like, when I'm feeling a certain way, he'll come and he'll put his head on my lap. It's like, "How do you know this?" Like,
Right.
I feel like sometimes our pets are, like, kind of sent to us in a weird way, but
Agreed. Agreed.
I just
Agreed.
know that this little guy, he did something for me at that time. And this was even prior to me getting into doing anything with Botanic Flora. But yeah, he is just my baby dog. And then after that, my mom had started living here. We transitioned from she was living in East Chicago, Indiana,
Okay.
and she had sold a home there. And she was just so nervous about coming here. And I was like, "Mom, I was like, I can't leave you alone anymore." She wasn't taking her medicine like she should. And I was just concerned. I didn't want her to be out there by herself. And the area isn't, as she got older, I became more worried because it's not a great area, but it's not a horrible area too, because I still have family members that live there. I think it just depends on where you are. But at the same time, she was always on my mind. And I said, "Mom, we have an extra room." And when we bought the house, I bought it for that reason. I wanted an extra space for her. I knew she was having a hard time without my dad. And, it was just, and we'd go over there to help her out and stuff. But it was just more so like, I need her with me. Like,
Yep.
it's like she
Absolutely.
needs to be here. And I was very close to my mom growing up, and I've always been, really close to my mom. And her being here it made me happy. But at the same time, I knew she was missing, what life used to be. Having to move all of her stuff. Oh my God, that's like, you have to understand, that's like 50, 30 years of stuff. So I even told my husband, like, we can't do this. Like, we need to like clear the house and get rid of stuff. And I had this thing with all this stuff. And when she passed away, it was difficult for me because she was here maybe 2 years total. We were watching the news. I remember it was, gosh, I think the last party we had here was New Year's Eve, the 2020 going into 2021. And she had told me, she's like, "This COVID thing is really scary." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. There was so much misinformation and things that were told and then were not told. And then what is an essential worker?" And it was just kind of like,
Yeah.
what do we do?
Yeah.
Like, and she was really scared of COVID. I remember her telling me that. All of a sudden, I came home one night and I just didn't feel well. And I just, like, I have to shake this. I had stayed downstairs because at the time I wasn't sure, like, did I get COVID? And then my husband was sick the week prior to that.
Okay.
And then I thought, okay, maybe he has COVID. And I just thought for a minute, I was like, no, this can't be. So it turns out we all had COVID at the same time
Oh,
in the house.
wow.
And he was just getting over his. I had just started mine. And then I think because my interaction with my mother I think she also got it possibly from me. We'll never know, but I just know that I was terrified at that moment because I knew it was hard for me alone. It was much harder for her. And so she called me in one morning and she's, kind of yelling. She's like, I need to get up. I need to get up. And so I ran into the room and we were all COVID. And I was trying to get her up to use the bathroom and I couldn't lift her. And my husband couldn't do it either. We were just like, and it's not because she was heavy. It was just, we were so like weak.
Yeah,
And trying to care for someone in that state is horrible.
absolutely.
And then I became concerned when I saw her lips. That was one of the symptoms. And I was trying to read up as much as I could and trying to figure out what to do. And when her lips turned like that purpley, dark purple color, she wasn't getting oxygen. And that's when I knew. I was like, I cannot. In my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want her to go to the hospital, but yet I don't want her to die here.
Right.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I had called my sister and I said, I'm going to have to send her to the hospital. I just can't. I would feel horrible if something like happened here. We called the ambulance and, I'm taking her in and taking information. I said, Mom, and I told her, it's like, Mom, it's going to be okay. We're going to get you some oxygen. And she didn't want to go. She just didn't want to go. And I said, Mom, but you need oxygen. I was like, you're not getting oxygen. And I said, if I had it here, I'd give it to you, but I don't have it. And I think at that point, I think she realized okay, let's just go. And I said, I got the information and they took her first to Freudian Medical in Kenosha. And then they had moved her to a different hospital. And I was concerned when they moved her to the second hospital because they had a COVID floor.
Mm.
And in the hospital, I remember feeling just so I had this unsettling feeling, I couldn't describe it like I did with my father. And I think you kind of know, when something bad is going to happen, that's instinct kind of just tells you.
Uh-huh.
So I was trying to stay positive as much as I could, and it was hard. And even my sister, with her having the medical background, I think she kind of came to the realization that she may not recover. They were only giving her a 30% chance of recovering at that point. And I was just kind of and then I was like, no, and I kept thinking to myself, I'm going to figure this out. There's got to be something we can do to help her. So I started looking up all these other procedures that they could do to help with, blood oxygen. And you almost become your own little scientist when you're going through it because you're researching and you're staying up trying to figure out what else can I do, what helps her, what doesn't help her kind of thing. Why aren't the hospitals doing this or that? And I felt in a way because of her age, when I brought up, I think there was another procedure called ECMO that they were trying. The doctor just sat me down and he was just like, she may not survive. If we take her to another hospital, she may not survive that ride. And I was just like, so what are you saying? And he's like, it's been 18 days. He goes, you're going to have to make a decision at some point because she can't breathe on her own. And I remember going down to what is that called? Where they have a little prayer area.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called, but
the chapel or whatnot.
The chapel.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what it was. So I remember going down there and I'm bawling. And I'm crying and I'm begging God not to take my mom. And ironically, there was a stained glass window there. I couldn't tell you what it was, but I focused in on the colors. And it settled me. I can't explain it. It's it just settled me. And I just started looking at the blues and the reds and the yellows and the green and how the sunlight was coming through. And it just hushed me.
Beautiful.
It just hushed me. And at that point, I knew, okay, I'm ready. I'm not going to do this crying with my mom. I'm going to have to, we're going to have to tell her. And so we came outside the room. And after talking to the doctor and my sister, she's like, Mara, she's going to be okay. I was like, she's going to be with Dad now. And I'm like, I don't want her with Dad,
Yeah.
trying to be selfish, but okay, And I didn't want her suffering because she wasn't eating. They can't feed you because she had this full face, BiPAP, they called it, kind of mass where it went over your full face. And that was just hard to see because, you couldn't touch her, you couldn't kiss her, nothing, just hold her hand really. And we told her what was going to happen. And she just closed her eyes. And I said, Mom, there's nothing more they can do, And she's like, why? And it was weird because she still had like a little spike in her. Like it was just horrible to tell her that. But at the same time, I knew she was just suffering. Like she wasn't sleeping after 18 days. It's a lot. And
You going through these very tragic events puts most people, and I can tell you as well, I was a very depressed individual during my college years. That's when a lot of the tragedy occurred for myself. And, there's always different ways to deal with those sort of things. But you were sort of finding that some of the traditional ways to deal with your depression weren't exactly working. There was sort of a switch to you, a way that things sort of altered, where you sort of found through the tears, through the darkness, through all these horrendous things happening. Um, you were able to find some light through the darkness. Can you share with the
absolutely.
audience? Can you share with the audience what that turning point sort of was?
So the year before my mom had passed, we had planted a bunch of plants and flowers because she wanted a garden here. In the back, it was just empty. It was empty. So the year before, we had planted a garden and then she wanted like all these pretty little sunflowers that we found seeds for, and we planted them all. And not one came up that year. Not one. And she's asking me, she's like, "Did you plant them right?" And nothing
Yes.
came up. But the following year, after she had passed away, I had sunflowers everywhere. Like they were just popping out of places that I didn't even know that I had planted, or maybe I did plant. I don't know.
Right.
But they were everywhere. Now, one thing about sunflowers is that they will always turn to face the sun.
Sure.
So symbolically for me, when I saw that all these sunflowers were coming up, it was like just staying in the light, you know, not going into darkness.
Yes.
So that was the first connection.
Do you still, by the way, before you continue, do you still are still a lot of those plants still around?
We still have some, but
Okay.
not many.
You know that your mother's there too, right?
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
felt like it was a gift from her,
Yes.
ironically.
Yeah.
So after that, all the sunflowers popped up. I went crazy and I went to Home Depot and I bought probably about 1,000, almost $1,000 worth of plants and
Sure.
flowers and trees. And I'm just going crazy. And my husband, he's like, Mare, you know, he called my daughter and he's like, is she okay? She's buying like all these plants and where are we going to put all this stuff? And my daughter was like, well, it's not drugs,
If you're going to have a habit, it's a lot better to plant than it is to do some drugs or something, Mary. I'm with you there.
Absolutely. So she was just like, well, just let her have her moment. Just this, she's probably just coping is what she told him. And he's like, okay.
But it was part of your
It was
healing
part of
process.
healing. Right. Because I feel like touching the dirt, looking at the flowers and things like
Absolutely.
that. It was so healing for me.
Yeah.
And then luckily where I live, we have a lot of nice lakes and ponds and trails that I can walk. So even spending that time in nature with Levi, like taking him for walks and stuff, it did something to me like spiritually. And for the most part, like when I had all these flowers, I remember watering one morning and one of those rose heads had fallen and I picked it up and I was just kind of like, oh man, this is such a waste, And I had set it in like a bowl of water that was sitting on the patio table and I kept staring at it and I was like, oh, that's kind of pretty, and so then I just started adding more flowers to it. And then it became like this daily thing. And I submitted some photos of like some of the stuff that I was going crazy with
Yes.
doing. But then I realized like maybe this is my way of just kind of like getting through that heavy
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
And it was but it made me feel so different. Like I can't explain it. Like when you're in this creative zone, it's spiritual in a way, like, but at the same time, it lights you up. Like that's the only way I could describe it. It just lights you up inside. And then I said, I was like, what if I could, use flowers in this or that? And I just started experimenting with flowers. And then my daughter's like, well, why don't we start a business, Mom? And I was like, okay, like we'll see how we do. And I think I started with soaking salts first. And then after that, it was just other little things that we added. I did some like lotions and butters and scrubs and, more of like an apothecary type of thing. But I feel like it's evolved over time because now I'm drawn more to like arts and teaching and just really showing how flowers can really like I don't know, just light you up in a way that, maybe people can't or life can't or drugs can't. But it's just for me, it's just a passion that I transitioned or transformed, I guess, from the heavy grief to like something just really graceful and like just boom, it just, I don't know what the right word is, but I just know that it just makes me feel content, when I'm doing it and when I put the intention into something that's just beautiful and exploring how to make it more pretty or more vibrant or more whatever. And then knowing the knowledge that I have with color in general, there's a lot of psychology to color that I didn't realize that I was actually tapping into. So
It's
that's how both career paths kind of
kind of come together,
interconnected.
kind of coincide. I often think that, our life is nothing but a book, and every chapter along the way. And we have the opportunity when we can to kind of rewrite some of those chapters.
Right.
Some things that happen to us are just going to stay on that. But I think it's really impactful. You were saying how it's very spiritual. You can really see that because it is sort of merging together. A, something you're able to do prior to your mother not being here with us
Right.
anymore. B, stemming from something that from the get-go, you were always sort of infatuated with colors and the sort of
Right.
the power within them. And it kind of bring those things together. I think it's really beautiful when we can practice our passions. I think then it makes it so it's a lot
Mhm.
easier to go through life when we're doing something that we really love.
Right.
My wife and I had the opportunity to meet you. We live in Algonquin, of course. And we met you in
Yeah.
downtown Algonquin at a cool little
Yeah.
event, which was great. My wife remembers meeting you more than me, but that's also because
Okay.
my memory's horrible. I'm an old man.
Yeah.
I've
Okay.
got a couple of years on her to say the least. But she also has an aunt in Oak Creek, Wisconsin.
Mm.
And we're going to be out there in June. We're going to be in Wisconsin in June for a multi-day wedding. It's definitely different in her culture than my culture, but that's okay. I'll figure out a way
Yeah.
to navigate through that. But you also, you were talking about, the fact that you don't just like to kind of present what you're doing, but you also like to educate others
Mhm.
as far as what you're doing. Now, you actually do classes somewhere around there, or actually, you actually do classes there, right?
Yes. So
Okay.
in Oak Creek, it's funny because I feel like Wisconsin was what embraced me
Hmm.
at this difficult time in my life because I've met so many awesome people, in this process. And I connected with the holistic community after doing my first show. And that was also at Pleasant Prairie, Doubletree Hilton or something. And it was through a holistic event that I did. And I thought to myself, that was my first one. And I was just like, well, as long as I make what I put into it, I'm
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I made quite a bit that day, and I was surprised that so many people, like, really liked what I was doing and trying to explain, like, a lot more about, like, what was going on. People were really, like, I guess, intrigued, like, because it was so different. It wasn't like anyone else's stuff. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
Well, I can explain it really quick. People are very much attracted to positive energy. And when people are doing something they really love, they're
Yeah.
exuding that. So that's probably playing a pretty big part. People could see how much you love it, how passionate you are, how much it meant to you. And, I don't know about you, but if I see somebody doing something good in the world, I want to see what they're doing so I can kind of pick up some of that,
Yeah.
some of those vibes, man.
And the
Those are
funny
the non-drug vibes that we all seek, by
Right.
the way.
Right. I guess that's what it is too. It's just like, oh, this moment of like, whoa, this is so like, I don't want to say disorienting, but it's like almost like you're in this bubble. Like, it's the only way to describe it. But from there, it was then I had heard of a shop called Angelic Roots, and I just thought, oh, this is interesting. I like the name,
Yeah, sounds cool.
and so I had gone to the shop and I walked in, and if ever you've been into a crystal shop or any type of metaphysical shop, it's
Uh-huh.
sometimes there's so many things going on. It's too competing. Like I can't be in there long. Like there's stuff on top of stuff, and trying to filter out all of the stuff that's coming at you it's too
Yes.
much.
Yes.
But this shop, it was so organized and so clean and so like just the most important part was that all of the crystals are arranged by color.
No. I can't believe you ever left the
And then
left the
I knew
store,
I was
Mary.
like, "This is my this is my
This is
product."
this is your jam. That's your jam right there for sure. That's
Yeah,
awesome. That's awesome.
and it was just and an awesome experience. So I noticed that they also did workshops there too. And I was like, I wonder if I could bring this in as a workshop, you know? And at first it was just the meditation with flowers. And then I realized some people like meditation, some people don't, some people, you have mixed feelings. I mean, I think during this whole process for me, I became more open to other ideas of healing in
Okay.
general. Not that I don't believe in church or anything like that. It's just that at that time, it wasn't helping me personally. So it really opened me up to just, I guess, accepting something different, you know? And I think that's why the holistic community felt more of a family, because it was a different type of modality of healing that I don't think other people would ever like consider. Like if you come from a Catholic background or a Christian background, it's very like, no, you don't go
Absolutely.
outside the lines, you know?
Sure.
But then I realized like there are so many people that are hurting that they're all looking for something. They're all looking for something to cope. And for me, it was the creativity. It wasn't just the fact that I was stepping outside of what I believed in. It was more so a different way of healing. It was just using creativity to shift the mind enough to stop thinking about it. Like to stop going through those every day, like it just felt heavier and heavier and heavier. I'm telling you, when I started doing those flower mandalas, if I were to take a picture of what I looked like before to what was happening after, it was a totally different face. Like it just, that's what I'm saying. It's like there's something in nature that is innately just there to heal. And I feel like we all lose sight of that somewhere. And I feel like, you know, we're just in this grind every day, every day, every day. Like if you're stressed out at work and you're kind of just too bogged down, go for a walk.
Yep.
Go for a walk
Yep.
outside.
Yep. With
If
your
you're
dog if we can.
feeling, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And if you're feeling really like just unsure about things, and buy flowers. Just buy a little bouquet of flowers and sit them on your table.
Oh,
And I'm
now,
telling you, it'll change the vibe
you know,
completely.
Neha's going to hear this and she's going to ask me every day why she doesn't have more flowers.
Yes.
I think how lucky we all are to have someone like you, because you've really turned things around in such a positive way, and how proud both of your folks would be that you're
Yeah.
doing something that is helping others and helping others through their grief and helping others through their bad days, and that you're teaching people about it, and you're showcasing what you're doing, and you're really meeting your passion with the practice.
All right.
I really, I feel honored to be able to do this, to be honest with you, and
Wow.
to be able
Thank you.
to be able to meet
Honored.
people like you, and just to be able to kind of, you know, I have a very strong connection with others that have dealt with some things that are maybe a little challenging around the road. And,
Mhm.
I feel a little je ne sais quoi with you, Mary, to say the least. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Thank you so much for being so brave as to being, you know, just to being so honest, and the tears, quite frankly, I know when I watch this again, I'm going to get choked up watching you, because I can relate, I can connect, and I'll tell you with as much as I can, whenever I see somebody that gets emotional, I always think that's a sign of strength. It's
Yeah.
a sign of weakness to kind of bog down and hide those sort of thoughts, because eventually, as we know, if we do that, it's going to bottle up and something not so great's going to happen, and I can attest to that. So thank you so much, Mary, for being yourself. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for the smiles, for the laughter. We really appreciate you here on the Ill Noise Business Playbook. So thank you very, very much. You have a great day, okay?
You too. Thank you.
You got it. Bye-bye.